I'm a hustler, baby.
It's time for Hustle Her podcast. I'm your host, Deshae Keynes. Hustle Her is all about inspiring women through real life experiences that have helped to mold and develop not only me, but my guests into the entrepreneurs and leaders we are today. If you're an enterprising woman determined to succeed and looking for a bit of motivation, a bit of tough love, and some actionable takeaways to be the best you, girl, you are in the right place. Hey guys, and welcome back to Hustle Her podcast. Thanks again for spending some time with me today. For those of you, if it's your first time here, welcome. And for our returning listeners and viewers, thank you again for coming and checking us out. Big thank you to our sponsors today, Brown & Co. and 59 Front. Make sure you guys head over to 59 Front and check out all the different products that they have down there. They have some amazing brands from Jo Malone to La Mer and some initial other things that you guys could try out down there. So you should definitely head over to 59 Front if you have not recently. I have an amazing guest today who I'm super excited to have on the podcast today. She is the SVP and Head of Underwriting Operations at PartnerRe, Miss DeVika Bourne.
Hey. Thank you for having me.
Good. I'm very, very happy that you're here.
Thank you.
I know we were talking about it pre-show, but I love the lipstick color.
Thank you.
It's super cute.
I love lipstick, so I wanted to try something a little bit less subtle for today. So.
It works. It definitely works. All right. So we'll jump into some questions to get everyone to get to know you really quickly. To give me the first thing that comes to mind, and then we'll jump in.
Okay.
Cool. All right. I'm happiest when
I'm with my children.
Okay. What do you do on a plane?
Ooh, either read or listen to music.
Okay. All right. No worries. Skincare routine.
So I use Circadia products every morning, every night. Wash, SPF, lotion. Yeah, SPF has become a regular routine.
Same for me.
Yeah,
I use Black Girl sunscreen.
Yeah.
I didn't do that when I was younger, but definitely now.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. All right. What did you spend your first big paycheck on?
First big paycheck. I had already bought a house by the time I got to a first big paycheck. So I know it was something for the house. I just can't pinpoint exactly what it was.
Okay, I'm okay with that. All right. Who would you say is your closest friend right now?
Oh my gosh. Well, outside of my husband.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
So outside of my husband, I have had lifelong girlfriends that I'm so incredibly thankful for. So names?
If you want to.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't want you to forget anybody and then it becomes a problem, right? So it's up to you.
But no, I have lifelong high school friends from high school that we continue to have the best and closest relationship. So
perfect.
We're outside of my husband, naturally.
All right. Nice. I love that you said outside of my husband.
Yeah.
Like, duh. All right. What does love feel like?
Ooh, gosh. It feels appreciated. It feels reciprocal. Because of course you can feel it, but you also have to be, given that exact same emotion back. Wholesome, happy, excited, spontaneous, all of those things.
Yes. Okay.
It's
all
fuzzy
right.
feelings.
What is your hidden talent?
Ooh. I don't know if I necessarily have a hidden talent.
Okay.
I don't know.
It's fine. It's fine. If all the talent are out there,
Yes,
they're no longer
I
hidden.
think they're all in.
That's what we'll say. All right. Celebrity crush.
Ooh. I knew you were going to ask me.
It's become a thing now.
Yes,
it was not
exactly.
intended, and
Yeah,
then it
yeah.
just became a thing.
I thought about it, and if I think back to like my old crush, I don't think I have one right now. Well,
Yeah.
Beyonce is my crush. She'll always be my crush. So
I'm going next weekend. I can't wait.
I went to in August. But when I was like in university, Usher was definitely a crush of mine. I remember catching the bus from Wolfville to Halifax to that record store to buy that one CD.
Can you imagine we used to buy CDs?
Exactly. I'm playing it over and over and over when I got back to my
That's
dorm.
great. Which CD was? Which album was it?
Confessions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Confessions was a good album. Yes. Confessions Part 2.
Yes,
yeah, Burn. You had so
everything.
many songs on that
Amazing.
one. Yeah.
It's still
a great album.
Yeah, exactly.
Definitely. You got to head over to Vegas to go see him.
I know, we were just there and he wasn't performing during that week.
He extended his dates, just saying. All right, and then finally, what is your cut match team?
It's St. George's.
Mercy. Just Two for
Without a
three
doubt.
today. Mercy. All right. Sorry.
Yeah.
Can't continue.
No.
I'm joking. All right. All right. So let's jump in. So I read off your title, big title, right? Senior Vice President, and you are the head of underwriting operations at PartnerRe. So walk me through leadership in that aspect in your current role.
Yeah. So I'm responsible for a team of about 40 right now in 8 locations worldwide. And really, we're just responsible for all of the administration side of the underwriting process, right?
Okay.
So we're very much supportive to all of the underwriters worldwide at PartnerRe. But in addition to that, I think what's really crucial about, leading those 40 people is that I somehow am responsible for also help them to develop and grow. I have 40 worldwide, but 3 direct reports, and then the remaining team members feed into them. So those 3 managers really look to me for support, development, kind of guidance, advice. I find my role to be more transformational. When you're in that operational space, there's a heavy pressure to continue to be efficient. You're viewed as a cost, right? You're not the front of the business. So you really need to pay close attention to remaining efficient, building in processes that can be kind of replicated, or very agile, where when things grow, you can still adapt. And so that's a really at the core of my function in making sure that we're being as, efficient as possible. I think that's really, really crucial in my space. But the leadership side of it, I love, right? This is something that I really take to heart. I think that I believe wholeheartedly that as a leader, your single most important responsibility is to create other leaders. I read that in Maxwell's The 5 leadership principles, and it stuck with me, and it will forever stick with me, because I do believe that we have a responsibility not only to the people that we lead, but even to our organization, right? When it comes to succession planning and just really positioning people to be able to take over when you leave, because you're not going to be there forever, to be ready for that. So. I do really feel strongly about that.
Yeah, no, definitely. And in your bio, you say something around the line, basically I'm paraphrasing here, of you manage people the way you wish to be managed. So how did you wish to be managed that you're changing now with the people that you manage?
So I always liked being managed by someone who had an open door of policy. So someone who I felt very comfortable with, who I trusted, who had a high degree of integrity, who I knew when it was time to show up in that room and speak my name and promote me would do it, and do it without even needing me to co-sign that message, right? Because they knew me so well, right? They'd taken the time to learn about me, to understand me, to know both weaknesses and strengths, and get in there and really, put me forward, push me outside of my comfort zone. And I do think I do that a lot with my team. I do kind of stretch them a bit, but that's where the growth occurs, right? So this is something that I try all the time to help with my team in their development. But leading the way you want to be led is a core principle of mine. The way you want to be led.
Yeah, I got it.
is a core principle of mine. And, I just, sometimes you just have to step back and say, would I have wanted somebody to do that? Would I have really wanted to know the truth in this situation? When it's time for feedback, do I want it fluffy, or do I want to know, right? So that I have the opportunity to actually change it or correct it or address it. Maybe there's a misunderstanding. So it's those kinds of things that really drive me to want to make sure I'm treating people the way they that I would want to be treated.
Yeah. And then with managing so many people, it's obviously different personalities, right?
And cultures.
Yeah. Cultures too. And, trying to be, you're not just leading women, you're leading men as well. So how do you find that balance with leading different people, different personalities? Like what you do for Deshay is not the same that you would do for Lara. Like,
absolutely.
How do you manage all of that, I guess?
So you make mistakes.
I love that though. I love that you said that.
You do. You make mistakes. I will never forget. So I haven't been in this role for very long. I assumed this position in 2020.
That's 3 years ago. That's pretty...
Yeah, you're right.
That time flew by, but it went quick.
It did. But I remember sending an email to one of my managers and copying another manager in, and that manager was so offended by me sending the email the way I did. It was partly cultural, also just misunderstanding.
Yeah.
And it was, she was in Europe, and, she was very upset. She called me. She was almost in tears, like just completely offended.
Oh
And I didn't look
gosh.
at it like that, but it gave me the opportunity to step back and say, okay, now I know how I need to set that kind of
Yeah.
relationship up. So I think you know, to some degree, you will make mistakes as it pertains to learning
Yeah.
people, their cultures, what works, what doesn't work, and that helps to kind of guide you through it. I think that, you know, obviously language is something that creates a huge barrier between people, but you have to just slow down. You know, I speak very fast, so that was something I had to really learn. I remember one of my managers in Zurich, he said, "You speak like a machine gun. It's so fast." And I was like, "Oh my gracious!" But it gave me the opportunity to say, "Okay, slow down," because look, you don't want the message lost, right? They need to understand you, and then, you know, help, you know, guide people through what you're trying to explain, the outcome that you're trying to receive, and things like that. So it's been a lot of learning, but I do think you will make a few mistakes, especially when you're dealing with so many different cultures and personalities and genders, you know.
Yeah, no, and I love that you said in the beginning, the making mistakes part of it, right? Because a lot of times as leaders, as people in positions where they manage people, they don't necessarily admit that they got something wrong. You know what I mean? So most times it's just like, oh, okay, cool. Whatever, you just keep it going, and there's never the acknowledgement of that mistake, or, you know what, DeVika, I could have done this differently to better support you, like working off your strengths and not necessarily pushing those weaknesses all the time. So it's such a delicate balance. Like, I can think of a horrible manager that I've had in the past, you know what I mean, and everything they did wrong, but then I also can think of really great managers who gave me tons of skills that I needed, and those ones were the ones that were like, you know what, I'm sorry, I got that wrong. And then they figured out the best way to essentially make it better for you as the employee. Yeah. It's always key.
It is. And it's a space of vulnerability, right? So, and that's a very difficult space as a manager, because you somehow, I think we've been taught that you need to appear strong. You know, you don't want to appear weak. You don't want people to take advantage of you, take your kindness for weakness. But to some degree, people need to see that element of you, right? Because it brings back a little bit of humanity into this very structured business world that we're in so often. And I think I've had the best results with teams where they've actually seen, like, hey, I'm just a human. Like, I am DeVika over here trying to make it just like you. You know, so I think you get the best results out of people, and they respect you a lot more from that, right? You can say, sorry, I made a mistake. Look, how can we move forward? Give me some feedback. How do you think I'm doing? Right? Let's open that dialogue. Tell me, you know, so that I also have the opportunity to fix it.
Yeah, that's really key. So let's take it back a little bit, right? So when you first started out in your career, did you ever think that you would be in the position you are right now, leading a team of 40 in, you know, 8 different countries around the world? Like, was that all the end goal, to be in leadership?
End goal to be in leadership? I didn't know that this would be the journey I'd take to get there. But I always saw myself in some type of leadership capacity.
Okay.
I've always been, you know, I've always put myself out there in kind of different scenarios, even from, you know, high school, like being a deputy house captain and, you know, just doing different.
You used to play sports?
No,
I used to play.
I'm struggling just to, back then I used to run, but these knees are not set up like that anymore.
Got it.
But no, I, you know, just kind of doing things like that. Youth Parliament was back then. I was part of that. You know, a German club. I went to Rotary. I was a Rotary exchange student. So it's like all of those things that kind of, you know, I did that required a lot of strength on my own. So it didn't surprise me being in a leadership position. It was kind of how I got there. You know?
And what was the, I guess, surprising aspect of the how?
I guess the most surprising aspect was, well, first of all, it happened rapidly. I came into a role at PartnerRe, and then 11 months later, they were like, you're going to lead the team. And I don't even think personally I was at a place where I wanted to do that yet, because I just found out I was pregnant and having my daughter, and I hadn't even told my department. But, you know, it is what it is. Sometimes you just have to kind of roll with what's happening at the time and just do it. So I think it was a lot sooner than I expected. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, because to some degree, I'm a big proponent for people taking risks early in their career. And because I got thrusted so early into this management position and wanted to master that somehow, I think I lost sight a little bit of maybe I want to change and do this or do that, right? So I think that probably would be my thing on the how.
Yeah, definitely. And so you went to school to be a CPA.
I went to school and I got a business degree in finance.
Okay.
I had so even before that, I wanted to be a lawyer.
This is so insane. And I'm looking at Lara because the amount of women that have sat on this couch and said they wanted to be a lawyer, myself included.
Okay.
And we have gotten, I don't think anyone has been a lawyer.
Right.
It's so crazy. So that's what that look came from, because literally so many.
Yeah, when I was in high school, I wanted to be a lawyer. And then I did Rotary, came back from Bermuda College, still, fluffing around a bit. Then I went to work in banking. And I think that kind of, sparked my interest a little bit into that finance route. So I went to work. I was working at Bermuda Commercial Bank back then. And it was a great foundation, great team, people who really had a vested interest in your development and success. So I went to university, studied finance, thought I wanted to be a CFA, but wasn't 100% sure, said I would come back, get a job. So I got straight into reinsurance. And from there, I was just, I got into accounting. So it was like just a natural fit. But I was still kind of trying to figure out what I wanted to do, whether it would be underwriting, whether it would be finance. And I think I settled, that sounds weird. I think I ended up with studying to be an accountant because that foundational degree I felt was really, really important, right? Yeah. There's a great foundation to being able to understand finance and accounting because it can translate into any industry. Yeah. So I think that was what was very appealing to me in becoming an accountant.
Okay, definitely. And then so once you became an accountant and you went into reinsurance, like what were some of the other qualifications you kind of got after that to remain in that industry?
So everybody always asks me this. And to be honest, I haven't gotten any other like insurance or reinsurance designations. It's been all experience based. I've done, you would have seen on my resume, a lot of leadership kind of focus. So that has been a big part of my educational journey. But from a specific core insurance designation side, I haven't done much. I don't know, I think because I do believe there's an element of it that you just need to learn on the job. Right? But the thing is when I was studying to be an accountant, I had just gotten married. So after that, all of that happened, I just wanted a break. Yeah. There was no more education energy in me. Yeah. And since then, everything, life happens. Yeah. So.
No, I have a friend who is a CPA, and I know I'm literally talk to her all the time about her journey when she was getting all her exams. So I can empathize with it because, those exams are no joke. So I can totally understand that.
It still tires me out thinking about it.
Just thinking about it now.
Yes, exactly.
So tell me about little DeVika. What did you want to be before, lawyer, but as like little DeVika, 8 years old, what did she want to do?
It's funny because at 8 years old, I knew I wanted to be a lawyer.
Really?
Like I was very decisive back then. My grandma would always say, nope, I'm going to be a lawyer. I'm going to be a lawyer. I'm definitely going to be a lawyer. I think it's because I had this natural knack for talking and, debating. And so I felt like that would be a good career choice. Yeah. But being a lawyer was always something I wanted to do and be. I remember my grandma seeing Nicole Sternum one day, and we were at Paget Pharmacy, and she was like, my granddaughter wants to be a lawyer. Take her under your wing, be her mentor, and we still have a relationship to today.
That's really cool.
Yeah, and even though I didn't pursue the law route, but this was something I knew I wanted to be from a very long time.
Yeah. And did you play? I know you said you used to run when you were younger, but what other extracurriculars were you involved in?
So running was the main thing. It's funny to say, I don't remember doing a whole lot as a young person. From a sports perspective, I did a little bit of dance, but didn't stay in that. But as a result, my girls are in everything. So it's like, I didn't do it all, but I want you to do it all. My mom it was just her in the household. So she worked a lot. And so, from a parent support perspective, she wasn't able to take me around to all of the activities that I needed to do, and things like that. But, that didn't really stop me exploring other things. Yeah.
So how would you say, knowing that now about your mom and, your relationship that way, how would you say that that's kind of molded you into the leader and mom that you are today?
Yeah. So I've definitely taken the approach that I really want my girls to have exposure to as much as possible at an early age. I recognize that they will drop things. They will say, I hate this. I don't want to do it anymore. But I do think the exposure is key because it helps them to make a decision, find something they love. I laugh now and say if I had gotten to a sport hardcore when I was young, physical exercise wouldn't be such a big deal anymore at this age,
I don't think
right?
that's the case.
But
because I was.
Oh, you were?
Look now.
But I always say, maybe. So now I really try to expose them to as much as possible, just in hopes that something finally sticks. I mean, dance has stuck for them. They absolutely love to dance. But in hopes that this will carry them through a little bit further as well.
Yeah. So you have this job, and I talk about, I obviously interview a lot of women with big jobs, right? And it always comes to this question around work and family and husband and balance and all of those types of things. How do you manage to juggle all of that?
Yeah. So the B word is a bad word, because balance basically just doesn't exist for me. If something's getting done, something else isn't. Right. Juggling, I mean, prioritization is extremely key for me. At one point in time, something has to take priority. At another point in time, something doesn't. I have a lot of help, a big support system, I will say, which I'm extremely thankful for. So that is a huge help in helping me to achieve everything, because I think it's the mom component that really tips it over the edge, right? Going to work and getting it all done is fine. I can get that. I can handle that. But when you add in, 2 daughters trying to deal with their schedule, getting it all done, come home, be a mom, be a wife, still be an employee, it can get very overwhelming. So I just have to really sometimes just sit back and focus and say, what needs my priority now, right? I do have a rule that I don't look at my emails before I leave the house, because I remember a lady I work with, she was like, don't do that, because you're going to be in work mode before you even leave. And then you can't give your children the attention they need before they're off to school. You're already like, in a boardroom and not with them. And so I do have that rule where no reading emails before you leave the house. You can check them as soon as they get out of the car. You could be like, okay, in traffic, but not before I am out of their sight. Really. And even when I'm trying to when I get home and there's things I need to still do, I try my best to kind of put them to bed first and then go back on. So I am really strict during the week about, it's time for bed. You guys have to go, even if you're just in your room laying down, not necessarily sleep, but that carves out the time for me to be able to now refocus and get other things that I may not have gotten done.
Yeah. And then how do you still have date night with the hubby and that type of balance too?
Yeah. And he has a very demanding job too, right? So this is a tricky one. So we've tried a few things, like let's commit to a series that we watch every single week on that day, right? And we can do that, or let's talk. But we struggle. I mean, if I'm being honest, that's a hard one. I mean, during the week, he's still working until 11 o'clock at night. It could be me that's doing that. And so luckily, we do have a really strong relationship. We talk often. We laugh a lot. He is. We laugh a lot. But that one is hard, especially when you throw in the schedules of the children and everything else, and trying to find a night where it actually works. Finding a babysitter, all of that. Yeah, that's one we're still trying to perfect.
Yeah, but I feel like both of you know that, and still trying to work together on that is helpful, right? Because sometimes someone else is pushing it more than the other, and I guess the balance there is that both of you know that something is something you're still working on, and even if it means you watch the series and fall asleep together,
it's
still together.
Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, it can be just like, now we're trying to make sure that we eat dinner together with the girls, so that we're talking, we're having that conversation, all 4 of us, really, just shooting the breeze, right? Just saying how your day was, and that is time, right? And so it's all of those little things. I remember at one point we were like so on the go. It's like, get your food, somebody's on the couch, somebody's at the breakfast table. Like now it's like, no, let's carve this time out and really sit down and take 30 minutes to enjoy each other.
Is it difficult to switch off from big boss mode to mommy and wife mode when you get home? Like, I know I don't have that, but if I've had a really crappy day at work, I need a minute, to get myself together. Like, how do you do that? You walk through the door, you've had a crap day, right? And it's just like, mommy. Like, how do you do that?
Honestly, I mean, what I do now is I go in my room for at least 20 minutes alone with the air conditioner just blasting, and just lay there, right? And just, whether it be looking on my phone or looking at TV or doing absolutely nothing, I just need 20 minutes, right? And then usually Mark will be coming home, and he can kind of keep the wheels going. But at least just carve out that little bit of time. It's not a lot, but it gives me that minute. I remember living in St. David's because we used to live in St. David's before. So that drive used to be almost
That's
like
time.
It was a decompression, right? But now we're in Devonshire, so you're home so quick. Everything happens so fast. But usually I try to just go away for like, 15, 20 minutes. Just give me a second, especially if it's been a rough day.
Yeah. Those rough days are gotta be tough.
They are.
And people don't really understand that weight of a leader with certain things. You're making decisions, budgets, all that type of stuff. Got people's lives in your hands, right?
Exactly.
So when you're in that process of it, like, how do you kind of make those decisions as a leader when knowing you've got someone's life in your hand? Because you talk about being an intimate leader and knowing your team and things like that, and when you have to make decisions that could affect the person that you know's livelihood, like how do you feel? How do you navigate that?
Yeah, this is interesting because sometimes when I'm in this kind of situations, I say, would it be easier to have kept that kind of block up where you don't know so much and you just kind of robotically just do everything? But no, because I still think it's important to build those relationships with your team. I try to be as fair and as diplomatic as possible. And what I always say is that a lot of things that we do as leaders is confidential, right? Things people don't find out. But I always say that if something were to happen, if there were some type of cyber attack and everything was exposed, I would be able to stand on every decision I've made if everything came to light, right? And so with fairness, with, thoughts, with concern, all of the decisions that I've made, I've done so making sure that I keep everybody kind of in view as best as I can, because you can't do it for everybody, right? That's not possible. Yeah.
So knowing all of that now, right, what do you think is something people misunderstand about you?
I think there's a guard up to some degree, because especially in the office that you need to have, because there's certain conversations you can't have. There's certain information that that nobody else knows, right? And so it's difficult to navigate that sometimes, other than just kind of shutting down and being a little bit more, recluse. Like,
definitely.
And I think I carry that sometimes outside of work, right? Which maybe I can't shut it off. I do keep I have a very small circle, but that's just me. I'm a creature of habit. I like my same friends. I like that same group. I like to be able to just have that network that I can depend on and trust. And that works for me.
Yeah, but I think as we get older as well too, like having a lot of friends isn't always the right thing, like sometimes the people that you think are your friends, you find out that they're not. You get bitten, and then you feel some type of way about it. Exactly. So I get having less of those core people.
Yeah, for sure.
And so how often do you like lean on those guys when it comes to like anything?
Yeah. So I always get concerned that I'm being too heavy, right? So I don't want to be the one who's always just filled with like just something, right? But I do always have something going on. From a work perspective, I keep that very, very separate, because you kind of need to, especially in Bermuda being such a small community. So, I certain things I just can't talk about, right? But personal things, I have my core friends that I can lean on. I've had some really touchy things that have occurred in my life that I've always had that support there already available. We don't talk all the time, because we all have lives and we're all busy. But I always know that should something go down,
they're there. They got your back. Your ride or dies, right?
Yeah.
So when you think about your entire career, you look at the gamut of things that you've done, all of that. Like, what do you can look back and say, what, this is the why. This is my why. This is my motivation to keep going. I'm sure there's more things in your future that you want to do, especially professionally, as a mom, as a wife. But what motivates you to keep going?
Well, now definitely having my daughters. That is a huge motivation. They are a huge motivation for me to want to keep going. I mean, my work in the D&I space is a lot to do with that, right? Just trying to shape the future, whereas they have a better chance at, growth, success, kind of exposure, all of those things. And I speak about that a lot at work, having two daughters, so female and Black. These are definitely barriers that they will have to overcome as they, go through. So now I think having my daughters, being coming from a single parent household, it was also very important to me to try to build something for myself that, resembled a lot more stability for myself, for my family, and just, being prepared to get old, right? Ready to just, not have to depend on anyone, my children, all of that. So there's a really huge kind of motivations for me as I, work hard and what I'm doing it for, and my how and my why.
Yeah. So you said something just now around when you kind of look into I just lost what I was saying. When you said it around going back and breaking glass ceilings and making sure for your daughters that, they don't have to come into the same environment that you would have come through. Like, what are some of the things as a leader that you're doing in your environment to ensure that, it's not the same things are not having to be done every time, there's a new woman that comes into leadership, a Black woman, a Bermudian woman that comes into leadership. She's not having to go through, quote unquote, break the same glass ceiling that you've had to break. What are some of those things that you're ensuring?
So, I mean, now I think we're at a stage where having those tough conversations is what's helping to break some of those ceilings, right? So I think, if I'm being really honest, we have a long way to go. And so just being at a stage to be able to have those conversations, that whole, you have a seat at the table, that's not just a meme, right? This is serious. When you do have a seat at the table, you need to make sure that the message that you're saying is heard and understood so that it translates into action when you leave that table, right? And so for me, it's really, really important that, the journey of us is understood, right? And why so much of it has to change and become more equitable, more fair, a lot, not necessarily easy, because I don't expect anything to be given, but just, balanced, right? That's a place where I can use balance.
Yeah, you're right. Absolutely.
Yeah,
no, I get it. And I mean, why do you think we're having such a hard time? I mean, the needle's moving, right? But it's not moving in a rapid way. Why do you think industry, I think it's across the board, not just, the insurance and reinsurance industry, but why do you think we're having this, like, we just feel like we're getting to the door and just, going back and forth? Why do you think that is?
I think it's twofold. I think not everybody's really comfortable with the topic. I think people feel like they need to do something around it, not necessarily be comfortable with it and proactively want to see change, right? Because I said it in a meeting the other day. I think it's a little disingenuous when you're reactive as it pertains to D&I issues rather than being proactive, right? So you need to be proactively seeking out opportunities to make some change there. And then, as a leader, and I say this too, we kind of need to get out of our own way, right? So what that means is that we have to step back and say, I need to give someone else the tools they need in order to be able to take my role when I'm not ready to be here anymore, right? I also need to understand that if I really want to effect change, if I really want to see the needle move, that understanding that a lot of demographics didn't have exposure to that experience, that may mean that as a leader, I am going to have to take the person that has 2 years experience rather than 5 years experience and help to build them up a little bit. And that's the sacrifice we're going to need to make if we really, really want to see change. And until we really sit back and say, this is what I'm going to need to do and this is my responsibility if I want to really see something different, I think we're going to keep knocking on those doors and not being able to open them.
Yeah. So I agree with you wholeheartedly. Where I get nervous is we're creating these environments, calling them career changers and all that type of stuff, right? We're welcoming people in, and not everyone has the mindset that you do with taking the time to then build them up to where they have to go. And then we're setting people up essentially for failure. And I said this in on a different panel, and I was essentially like, if you're not in a position in your environment to welcome these people in and train them adequately, you're better off not hiring them, right? But in saying that, with what you just said just now, it's kind of twofold, because it's like we don't want people to not be in the environment. So how do we get companies and organizations to be like, you know what, we're going to welcome them in, but we're also going to dedicate the time and resources to training them up adequately?
Yeah, so leaders need to be held to a standard. It needs to be tied to performance. That's part of your performance, right? That is what you need to do. You can't bring someone in the door and just drop them there and think, oh, I'll figure it out. I mean, then you're not doing your job, and you need to be tied to that, right? You need to be held to making sure that you're training people up, that you're giving them the opportunity, that you're giving them the exposure. And if you're not, then you're not doing what you've been hired to do, right? And so that makes people feel uncomfortable because nobody wants to be tied to that. But ultimately, what are you doing? If you're hiring someone and bringing them in the door and just leaving them there knowing that they need some assistance, and then in a year complaining that they aren't doing a good job, what have you done?
It's a poor reflection on you as a leader.
It's a poor reflection on you as a leader. And I think us other leaders need to also get comfortable with speaking up when they see that happening, right? Because we also have a responsibility, not just to our teams, but to all teams and the company to say, hey, what's going on with that person? Like, why are they not thriving? Why are we not seeing more from them? Is there a performance issue? Leader to leader, you can ask those questions, right? And kind of, you just like holding your friend accountable. Like, if you don't like her boyfriend, why can't you say something to her?
Because we do that.
Exactly. So why can't you say something to her about the way she's leading and what lack of assistance she's providing to that employee that she's brought in? So
do you feel like there's a lot of resistance, and more so with men when you do things like that than women, or is it just blanket across the board?
I'm thankful that I work at a company where I don't see that, right? So I think, you know, that's one fantastic thing about my company is that I haven't experienced it, but I can see that would probably be an issue in other spaces, and it could create a little bit of intimidation as well, like not wanting to really call people out and
stepping on toes,
those
exactly, types of things.
Mind your business.
Yeah, definitely. So what does like success look like for you ultimately, right? Like, I know you said you've kind of ascended into this role like a little bit quicker than you expected to initially, but what is defining success in this role as a leader of your team?
I think success for me in this role as a leader would be that I have adequately given opportunity to my team members, that they felt as though they can thrive, that they worked for a team that was healthy, that was appreciative, that, you know, they were a part of change, right? Where change wasn't necessarily dictated, because we have a lot of change going on, I think, worldwide in general, right?
Everywhere,
but people want to feel part of that, and I think that helps with their acceptance. So know that, you know, they were brought along that journey with us, that their feedback, you know, mattered. If my team members stood back and said that about me, I would feel like, yes, that's exactly what I wanted to achieve, and that would look like success for me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I guess it's so crazy because the time goes by so quickly, but we're wrapping up a little bit. But I mean, when you look at your inspiration, and we talked about your why and your motivating factors, like what would you go back and tell, you know, beginning of her career, DeVika, what you know now, or even another woman that's just starting out her career, what would you tell her with all of the knowledge you kind of have now?
Yeah. A couple of things. Take risk early, right? Try things out. Like, if you don't like it, then move on to something else. But take those risks and really define what you want to do. Because look, this is for the rest of your life, right? Define that by trying things out early. Because you're going to get to a stage where risk is too risky.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I think, you know, one thing that I reflect on a lot is the goodwill that I've paid into my organization early when I could, like at the very beginning, right? Because I think as we get to a certain stage in our careers where we become mothers, we're stretched a little bit. And so because your organization knows you, you've built that reputation, you know, you're solid, no one's going to question kind of, you know, your ability to get things done or to take on additional tasks. Building up that goodwill right from the very beginning really will pay off in dividends, because you could potentially get to a stage where, you know, you're juggling a lot. And so being able to do as much as you did when you were fresh in the door, right out of, you know, off of an accounting designation, versus 10 years later where you now may have children and different things like that, that will pay off for you significantly, right? Build that reputation and make sure that people know you, understand you. That's really, really
and
important.
respect that work product, right? That you're producing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. And then finally, every question I ask every guest before they leave the couch: when you're no longer on this planet and you're no longer with, you know, the people that you love, and, you know, knock on wood, that's a long time from now, but what is something that you want to be remembered for? When someone says your name, you want them to say X.
that I had a lot of integrity, that I was a joy to be around, that I was trustworthy. You know, I kept my word. Honest. That I showed up. You know, and I provided support when they needed it the most, and I made them feel good, right? Because as a you know, you may not see me, but you will never forget what I did for you inside and how I made you feel. So that's important.
Absolutely. Well, that's it.
Oh,
that went by so quickly.
That did. Oh my gosh, I didn't even feel nervous.
I know. See, it's comfortable.
Yes,
Everyone gets so nervous.
So I don't know what it is with this couch. I don't know what it is.
We got some, calm serum going on.
Yes, exactly.
And thank you so much for spending some time with me today, and I appreciate it. All right, guys, thanks so much for spending some time with me today. We had the amazing DeVika Bourne on. She is the Senior Vice President and Head of Underwriting Operations at PartnerRe. We're really grateful for her sharing her story and her experiences, her leadership style, and everything she brings to the table with us today. As always, make sure you head over to the website, hustleherpodcast.com, sign up to become a VIP member. You can see DeVika's bio on there. You can also see some additional of the behind the scenes that we have, as well as like the blogs, and we can do some additional chit chatting there. As always, thank you to our amazing sponsors, Brown & Co., as well as 59 Front. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today and with DeVika today. And thank you for watching Hustle Her Podcast.